Okay, well, good morning, everybody. This is our Friday Health Coach Huddle Up, and it is June 23rd. So my name is Craig Blanchette. I'm a global director, obviously, here with Optavia, and are super excited. We have a great training plan for you today. And one of the things that we've been doing lately is really looking at the team approach to our trainings. And so we've got a number of coaches that are rising to the occasion and saying, hey, I want to lead, I want to do some stuff. And so we've been working as a collaborative team, and it is so exciting, and it brings so much more depth and texture to the trainings. And so we're going to get started right into it. Our call goes for about an hour. This will be available later via podcast and YouTube channel and Vimeo channel. So if you search for Health Coach Huddle, you'll find it on YouTube. And if you search for Health Coach Huddle Blanchette, you'll find it on Vimeo. And without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. So I'm going to toss it over and welcome Daniela this morning. So good morning, Daniela.
Good morning, Craig. Good to see everybody here this morning. Hi, Alex. So last week, we had some great conversation, kind of just becoming aware of walls of resistance and what that could look like. And so I thought we might start with a question to just get us thinking, because we're going to dig in a little deeper today and start discovering ways of actually beginning to peek over our own walls, and also to help others to be willing to peek over their walls, or maybe dig a little hole in their mortar and peek through. So I'd like to ask, in your minds, why would it be important to understand walls of resistance? What kind of thought have you been giving to that? Why is it important to understand walls of resistance?
Are you specifically any walls, or personal, or other people's walls, or do you have a specific, or just all walls of resistance?
Well, from a personal, I'm not physical walls, but
no, I get that.
Yeah.
Because other people will have walls of resistance, and then I have walls of resistance.
Exactly. So why is it important to understand ours or other people's?
So you can think of ways to bring down those walls.
Okay.
You can better serve people who understand them.
I like that. Yeah. So better serving, I like that. So Eileen said, so we can take down the walls, and then Debbie said something that gave us a real reason for why we, even as coaches, might want to do that, because we're all here with that heart to serve. So I love that. Any other ideas?
I think if we look at if we can identify what is involved in our own wall, we can then better understand other people's reactions to us, or, how conversations and communications go. Sometimes it might have more to do with our own walls of resistance than maybe somebody else's.
I like that perspective a lot. I think it was Craig that kind of brought up last week that it's not just the other walls that we need to be concerned with, but our own as well. Yeah. Or maybe it was Alex. Sorry, whoever I'm not giving proper credit to.
We'll both take it. One of the things that I say is super important about this topic, and maybe you're going to jump right into it, is why you want to have walls of resistance lowered down. And I know you're asking us for that, but just to clarify the walls of resistance, we don't put forward all of our effort and energy in a relationship if we're protecting ourselves, or if there's something we're trying to guard. Maybe it's not wanting to look stupid, or not look as perfect as we could, or not wanting judgment, or a lot of other words that a person might be feeling. but they, resist working together or being authentic in a conversation. So there's this protection wall. So I just want to give a little clarity that sometimes those walls are just protection mechanisms to keep us feeling safe. But like we talked about earlier, is it keeps people out from the truth, and it also doesn't allow us to engage, and vice versa on their side, same thing. It keeps people out from the full truth, and it doesn't allow them to engage. So having said that, back to your question, I think maybe that gives some more light to others. Can you ask the question one more time, Daniela?
Why is it important to understand walls of resistance?
Anybody else have thoughts on it? I'm actually going to be contributing in this conversation as a presenter, so I'd love to hear other people's thoughts.
I think if you don't, when I think about that question, if I don't know about the wall's resistance, then I'll be hitting something that I don't know about it, and so I'm trying to move forward, but there's something in the way. And if I don't understand what that is, I sort of get stuck with this invisible wall. But if I'm aware that there are walls of resistance, reluctance for me to take an action because I'm resistant to change, or knowing about that in other people, that they're resistant to change. When I know about that, then I can either learn to climb a wall, I can learn to tunnel under a wall, I can learn to go around it, or I can learn to go through it, or I can learn different things to deal with my walls and how to get around them.
I like that. What it makes me think of too is that, and Alex kind of brought it up, is that I think for me, mostly I think of walls as a mechanism for protection, right? I think that's why a lot of us have walls, is to protect us. But the part that we don't see is that it also is our prison, right? It keeps us from going places we'd like to go. Yeah. Okay. Well, Kim, do you want to start us off with some further delving into this topic?
I would love to. Thank you, Daniela. So I'm going to use myself as an example here, because one of my walls, I would say, that I built up, and I'm recognizing this in myself, and it limits me in the interactions that I can have with people. And so I've been working really hard at taking that wall down brick by brick, but it takes a while. So my wall, I noticed, is that I have become very task oriented. My life is about my list, or has been about my list. I'm not going to own that anymore. It used to be about my list. And so as I go through life, or as I've gone through life, if I'm going to the grocery store, I have a list, and I'm going from grocery to grocery. I couldn't even tell you who else is in that grocery store. If I'm going to the school to pick up my kids, my focus is on my kids. I don't know who's in front of me, who's behind me, who's beside me, unless they actually come up to my window. Even in a large setting, when I'm at the church, I'm having conversations because I need to talk to this person about this, and I need to talk about this, and I need to find somebody to do this. I just realized that many of my interactions are to fulfill a purpose or an agenda, and to check some things off of boxes. And as soon as I realized that, I started to lift my eyes up and notice people. And I realized that this has gone back to some of my own walls of resistance with interactions I've had in personal relationships that didn't go real well. And so I'm excited to change that. But the first step is, how do I do that? How do I talk with people and have it be about relationship instead of things to do? And that's really uncomfortable to start out and get used to that. And maybe you're really great at it, which is awesome. But I think this is a skill set that everybody can get better at. And so in some of our conversations, it's funny, the better I get at this, the more work that I realize needs to be done. It's like I start taking down a brick and then I realize, whoa, this wall's really big. I've got a lot of work to do. So I'm excited about how we're going to just kind of give you some practical steps. And the first thing that we just need to do is to become curious. And Craig is going to take us through kind of an exercise to help us get into this mindset. Take about 10 minutes for us to kind of look at what does it mean and how can we become more curious no matter what environment we might be in. So Craig, are you ready to take it away?
Yes, I am. And I was just thinking I don't have anything in my background for this. So we can't use mine unless I change my background, which I could do very easily, as you know.
I was going to say, Craig, I can ask you questions about your background. I am curious.
Yeah. There you go. Here, there's a background. There's a fat one. Anyway, so basically the whole idea was this concept of being curious, but not just typical curiosity, but authentically curious. And the idea of this was presented to me. I'm not sure, one of the trainings we were at, and it said the takeaway that I had was that human beings are unlike anything else on planet Earth. We're different than inanimate objects, rocks, and water and whatever, and even animals are unique to rocks, but human beings are unique to anything else. And so we have something special in us because we're image bearers. And so when you're connecting with another human being, being authentically curious about them because they're human, I think is worthy of that exercise. And so in a way for us to become more aware and more curious, we came up with a simple little exercise. And so if you'll take a minute and not look at the person, we're going to keep this real simple for now, and we just look about what's in the background of everyone's screen right now.
Craig?
Yeah.
Before we do that, can we invite people that maybe have their, what do you call it, non-video open?
The video paused.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we're going to have, for this exercise, we're going to need to have your videos on. And actually, just another subtle thing, because we use video versus just a conference call. Who was here when we used to do conference call? Like, remember those time when we just had this video? We didn't even have video, and then video came around. We were pre-video. And now we can actually see someone's face, and we can see them nodding and see them smiling, but only if their video is live. And so because we're such a relational company and relational team, we just want to encourage you guys to have your video on, unless you're inappropriately dressed or unless something, you don't have enough bandwidth to handle it. But yeah, we want to encourage that. Even if you're driving in the car, have your video on. And so there's a big, strong invitation for those that are out there. Thank you, Dawn. Nicely done, Dawn and Mary. So our exercise here is basically to look at what's going on behind the person and just try to think about, can you learn to be curious at a really basic, minimal level? And when I was talking with the ladies earlier this week, I looked at Kim, for example, and I said, so what do I see? I see a chair and I see some type of a hutch. And I was wondering, how can I be curious about those things? I mean, they're just there. But I started thinking about it. And the thought that came to my mind was, well, I wonder how long she's had that hutch. I mean, it doesn't look super old, but it doesn't look like she bought it at IKEA either. And so I was thinking, I wonder if that's a family heirloom, or I wonder what kind. I can't tell what she keeps inside of it. Maybe she's got gold bullion bars in there, or that's where she keeps her chocolate mint cookies or something. I don't know, but I can't tell what's inside of there. And so I was thinking, I wonder what's inside of there. And so as I stared at the background of things, I became curious. And then I went to Diane, and she still has it up there, by the way. Behind Diane, she's got this board with all these words on it. I don't know what they say, but there's a pink piece of paper on it. And I'm thinking, what is that pink piece of paper doing there? What's written on it? What are the black marks on it? And she went over and got it and told me all about it. Those are little pictures of dresses, of their cute little artsy dress things. And she said somebody gave that to her. And so we had this conversation where I was asking her questions, and then I asked a question after the question. And so the concept for this comes from something David Bush said, and he said, and you can write down this acronym. You guys ready for it? It says, where did I write it down? It's on this other piece of paper here. There it is. So he wrote down TLAS. And so T stands for tell, L stands for listen, A stands for ask, and S stands for start conversation. Now there's something wrong about that. It's actually supposed to be spelled salt. So flip it all around. You start with the conversation. Then you ask a question. Then you listen. And then possibly you tell. And so if we think about that, let's do this exercise. We can pick somebody and they can look at the background and just think of a couple questions. Like Martin has a lot of things. He's got a flag behind him. It's I don't know, Martin, maybe he was in the military. I don't know. And then he's got a printer. He's got some special things on the wall, right? Some books there. And then I see Dawn, her background's, she's in a car right now, but I think of Linda over here, and she's got a bookshelf, and she's got some pictures on there, but she's also got some books. And I noticed she's sitting by the window, and she's got a lamp, right? And sometimes her cat will walk across the screen, right? Bilbo. So think about that. Who wants to kind of jump in and sort of show us or exercise your curiosity about something that's happening in someone's background? Any takers? Linda, yes, please. We'll have some Linda.
I've been looking at Lori. Can I pick on Lori?
Yeah. Lori and Clark, you betcha.
All right. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning.
I have to admit, is there a rocking chair behind you?
Yes.
Do you ever rock babies in that chair?
Well, I didn't, but my son's neighbor did.
Oh!
They were moving, and I loved it. And I have grandchildren, so we bought it from them at a yard sale.
Nice. How many grandkids do you have?
We have 3.
Oh.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're up in Spokane, and we're in Southern California.
Oh, well, I live in Colorado, but Southern California. What part of Southern California?
San Gabriel Valley, which is outside of Los Angeles.
Okay. Yeah, I got family in Orange County. So
Okay.
Yeah.
So time out for just a second, Linda. You're doing such a great job, but I want to narrate what's happening. So first happened is Linda asked a question about a chair, but she didn't actually get the response that she was thinking she was going to get. She was kind of curious. Is that for rocking babies? Linda just had a baby, by the way.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, I did.
Yeah. And so, but you didn't answer her curiosity. Didn't follow that you rocked any babies in that chair. But then she asked, "Do you have any grandbabies?" So it was a question after the initial question, and that you did it so good, Linda. You're good at this. And then she said, "Well, how many grandbabies do you have?" And then there was a question after that. Well, you said, "Well, they don't live close; they live in Spokane." So she's like, "Well, where do you live?" Right? And that was very authentic. I know. Did that look authentic to everybody? It wasn't rushed. It wasn't forced. It flowed where the conversation normally would have flowed if she was authentic, and curious. Right.
And it was comfortable from my end, which was
Exactly.
really important.
And if I know that if Linda continued asking questions, she may have got to something that pertained to health, one of the 3 areas of our trilogy. And she could have said, well, why don't you live close to your grandkids? Or, well, because we can't afford it. Well, tell me more about that. Or it might have been, but who knows what it would have been. But usually it will end up eventually weaving its way through physical health, mental, relational, emotional health, or vocational, financial health. And so you just kind of be curious and see where it goes. I think it's a fun little game to see if you can get to the trilogy with being authentically curious. And if you can't, that's okay. Just see if it goes there. And it's almost like you kind of laugh when it does. It's like, oh, I can't believe we got right there. Like, we're talking about this. So thank you, ladies. Does anybody else want to try? Debbie's got so much going on in her background. I have so many questions for her. But I know you're working.
Well, you can ask if you want. You can see.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious. You have some little pins that look like they're for holding paper up on a little board behind you in your cubicle. What are they? Just colors? Are they mice? Are they animals? Or what are they?
No, they're little clippy things that have a little grip that you can put, because it's fabric. And so you can put it on and clip it. So it's just a colorful clip. It's not a animal or anything.
Right. Now, were they there when you got that cubicle?
No, I added them.
You brought those. Where did you get them?
Oh, I just probably stole them from downstairs in the little supply area.
So they're
they're
nothing specifically special. They're just.
I have a lot of stuff that's over here, and I needed some, and I just haven't utilized those ones yet. So.
Okay. And then it looks like you are coming to us from a different desk today than you have in the past.
No, I'm just
the right side
have
of you.
My angle. Yeah, I just have my angle. My normal posters that you guys see are behind me.
So it's the same cubicle though.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's something that's red. It looks like it's maybe a box of chocolates or something there on your desk.
Oh no. It's what? Oh. My desk? I can't see it from where I'm at.
It's in the corner. It looks like a little box, but in the corner. Yeah, right over there.
Is it this right here? No, they're just labeling stuff. Fun work stuff.
I was going to ask you to share.
Exactly.
Craig, we were all curious the other day when she had people come talk to her, and then all of a sudden she had to go.
Oh yeah, I should probably explain that. They were giving me a new phone. I got a stand-up desk, which is really cool. And so they're giving me new phones and everything. And so they were just kind of converging on me all of a sudden on wanting to deal with it. And so I wasn't in trouble or anything. I know it looked it looked like I had to go, but I just was like, oh, it's towards the end of the meeting and I'll just leave. So it's too funny.
Well, it's funny because Debbie's boss, Pam, is in our health games, and she's a client. And I just interviewed her for the challenge, a couple days ago. And so it's cool that Pam's totally in.
I just want to say something. This is really cool, like this conversation, just watching it as an observer, just how validating it is. Just you're showing curiosity, Craig. All of a sudden, Debbie's opening up about her new desk, and it's really cool. And then people are so in a conversation with a potential client or someone you're trying to help, how often do we get to have these types of conversations with them? Or are we all about their program or all about I'm going to get you or help you? Whereas this is Debbie's like in this conversation, right? And the collaboration is massive. And then anyhow, I just wanted to acknowledge, I know we're going there, but I just wanted to stop for a moment because it's so vibrant.
Well, did you see how we got to the trilogy with Debbie? I was just about to go there.
Mm-hmm.
She just talked about a standing desk.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my goodness, we are diving in like I was going to go all over. Like, well, why do you do that? Well, tell me about that. Well, so are you working on your health? Right? So we got to the trilogy, and I started out with some silly little colorful whatevers that were behind her on the wall.
Yeah. And sometimes I think it can be, or we have to be careful that that's not our agenda necessarily to get to the trilogy, but that we're listening for that possible opportunity, right?
Yeah, I wasn't trying to go there, literally.
Mhm.
I mean, if I could, if I was trying to go there by talking about those things on the wall, I'm a mastermind somehow.
Yeah.
I think about it. I even tried to implant cookies on her desk, and they were labels.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Well, now that we have learned to be curious, what happens when curiosity meets up with walls of resistance, right? When somebody just isn't even engaging in conversation, like, what's that over there? And, last time we came together, we had an interesting ending to our meeting. We were all just sort of thrown out from one another. And Alex was sharing, we missed it, but he was starting to share about, what happens when that curiosity and that desire to engage with another person meets up with some walls of resistance. And so, Alex, we would love to hear about that and have you kind of guide us through that, maybe that conversation that you were talking about last time with John.
Yeah, I'd love to. This is such a great conversation. I just have to say that just being able to share this with in this environment with us as coaches, I know it's going to serve so many of our clients' lives, but it's just going to serve our lives. You guys agree with this? This isn't about just, oh, I'm going to do this with clients. This is about living, like really stepping into people's worlds. And the only way we can really step into another person's world is if the wall comes down for them to allow us to come into there. And, real-time conversation and experience that we had a couple weeks ago, Daniela had me over to meet some of her colleagues that she works with and networks with, and a husband and a wife came over. And the man, John, and his wife were on the outside deck over Daniela and Dr. Nick's property. And it was a beautiful setting. And you could see that they felt a little out of place and a little reserved, which is what this conversation is about. Because I want to bring out this really important point about people. Most people actually show up in a conversation holding back 40% of their collaborative energy. That's the average stat based on studies and science that has been done, is people are holding back on average 40% of their willingness to collaborate and engage you with their life. And what it ended up, and I'll share the other thing about with you. You can ask me later if you want to bring it back up, Danielle, about the conversation with Christina and Kim and I and all that about the 10% versus the 40. But what happened with this circumstance is I was out there being in an awareness state that there was some resistance. I could see that the body language was showing kind of not wanting to face and look you in the eye, right? The words were like answering questions, but really wasn't sharing anything. When you're talking to somebody and all they're doing is just kind of giving you short answers, they're more like reacting to your questions versus actually in the conversation. Well, they really weren't in the conversation yet. And I remember asking the wife, Misty, about her kids. Oh boy, all of a sudden her energy just started opening up. And I said, tell me more. Oh, they're twins. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. How is it? And she was like, and I was like, I said, have you and John had a chance to get out much? And she's like, no, this is like a rare thing for us. Well, you're here now. And she started opening up. Well, with John, I noticed that he was kind of pulling back away into a corner a bit in the conversation. And he was kind of focused on Dr. Nick and just in that conversation. And it was more technical and work-related conversation and stuff like that. But whenever I'd ask him something, he'd answer my question, and then he'd kind of turn away, right? He'd give me the answer, but then he'd turn away. So I remember the moment of decision that I made. This is and I'm going to give you these 5 steps in a minute of intrinsic validation. But I remember the moment of decision that I made to intrinsically validate him. And what it starts with is noticing others and what's important to them. And let me tell you the outcome of this before I tell you the 5 steps. At the end of the night, John and I are at the dinner table laughing, and we're leaning over the table at each other. We're cracking up about a few things. He's telling some jokes about stuff. We're laughing about Nick and Daniela's haunted house and all this stuff. You can ask them about that later. John's like, man, this will be great to get back together. And I'm like, hey guys, I got to go. And he's like, yeah, it was nice meeting you. He had a smile on his face. He leaned into me, and Misty was like, hey, it was a pleasure, you know. And that was the outcome of that conversation. And it's leading to some other great things that will most likely lead to them being healthier people and maybe even coaching. They're curious, right? I'm going to stop there for a moment and just let Daniela ask any questions before I go over the 5 things that I chose to do to get to help facilitate that. I can't tell you I made that happen, but I definitely influenced it heavily. Any other comments or questions before I go through the 5, Daniela? I'm
No,
guessing.
go ahead. If you didn't, yeah, go ahead. I'm excited to hear about the 5, and I think you've got us all on the edge with our head in hand. So go for it.
All right. So like we said, people are holding back 40% of their collaborative power, and what doesn't work as well, it's definitely a thing I think most people go to, is sympathy, where you like say, oh yeah, like John's, we were on the deck and John was talking about work and how busy he's been and how much. And I could have said, oh man, that sucks. Or, wow, that's, yeah, I know working is hard, right? That's sympathy. And, he would have commiserated with me and we could have complained together, but that wouldn't have led him out of the wall. It would have just had him feel like, okay, yeah, I got problems and you got problems, right? Then there's this second thing that we like to do with people, and that is where we will try and steal their story. And we do that oftentimes by thinking we're relating. Oh, yeah, I've had that too. It's been tough at work, and I understand how that feels. And we tell them I understand how that feels when we really don't necessarily understand how that feels. And then we say, oh, yeah, just the other day, my boss was giving me grief, or I had these clients that just weren't following through, and we start comparing our reality to theirs. Anybody ever do that? And we're not really helping lower the walls of resistance. What we're doing is we're just, again, commiserating and kind of stealing it, making it about us oftentimes. So that's another thing we want to watch out for. It's a landmine. And then we tell people what we think. Oh, yeah, you should. We start giving advice. Yeah, I think, you should go tell them, and maybe just tell your boss that you just need to blah, 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 or whatever it might be. So that's what this is not, what I'm about ready to share with you. What this is where you're going to intrinsically, meaning internally, inspirationally, inside something that's already in them, validate what's important to them. And the first step, if you're taking notes, is you're going to notice others and discover what's important to them. And you'll know when you discover what's important to them because they'll share with some excitement or passion. They'll start to talk freely about these things. You're going to step 2 is you're going to be safe when they start sharing, and you're actually going to listen to understand them. You're not going to be relating with those, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Or yeah, I totally have that same thing. Oh, my twins did the same thing, because I have twins too. But I didn't take over the story for my twins. I kept asking John about his twins. He loves his kids. He'd love to have more time with his kids. I said, well, what are some of the fun things that you've done? Oh, that sounds amazing. Oh, I bet they're hilarious. Tell me more about that. And I just kept asking him a little more. Oh, I don't quite understand what you meant by that. Just curious about that. And then he'll share a little bit more. And I'm never taking it back and making it about me. Then what I'm doing ultimately is step 3, creating a safe place by asking questions that demonstrate my understanding. So instead of saying, oh, I bet it feels like, I ask them, hey, I'm curious, does it ever feel like there's not enough of you at the end of your day when you get home? And he's like, absolutely. I'm worn out, man. Versus me telling him, oh, I bet you're tired, aren't you, John? See, one of them is a statement where I'm telling you how you feel. One is asking out of curiosity, because he could have said, no, I have lots of energy at the end of my day. It's more like, and he's more open to share what it is versus, because if I ask out of curiosity, it's not saying I know, it's saying I'm curious, right? All right, let me get through the last two and then we'll open this up for some discussion. Step 4 is evaluate the new moment of decision. And I'm going to give you a pause on that. Evaluate the new moment of decision. And what you're doing here is you're assessing the timing of whether it's time to ask if you can have them step into your world. Because maybe you have something you could offer as a solution. Maybe you do know something that could help them or be of value to them. You know what? It just wasn't that time in this conversation for me to start imparting any wisdom. I decided to let this particular area be about them, and I assessed that. I remember getting there, you know what? I've actually got some things I believe would help this guy and maybe give him some life freedom and better health for his physical body and some freedom to spend with his kids. But you know what? It's not the time right now. He feels safe. I'm going to let this be there, and I'm going to trust that Daniela will set up another time and that process. And if Daniela and Nick hadn't been there as partners, I would have said, hey, I'd love to get back with you and Misty and just keep this going, right? It just wasn't that time. Sometimes what we do is we think we have to go into our shtick, right? Or our spiel right there. And sometimes you do want to go there. If he had been saying, hey, I'm curious about, how this works. Now, ultimately, Misty did jump in at this point and said, hey, before we go, I think we're supposed to learn some more things about the program, right? So Daniela and Nick got to do that piece, but that wasn't for me at that point in time. So my assessment was, Alex, don't go into it. And I even told him openly, I said, hey, I'm sure you guys will learn all about those things, and I look forward to getting to know you again. I just wanted to be the new safe place. And the reason why for me specifically was it took all of that energy and effort just to get John out of his shell. I didn't want to all of a sudden start being his mentor and teacher in that moment. I knew I would get another. I'm in for the long game, right? Last thing. All right, here we go. Button up. Step 5 is gain agreement and invite them into your world. And that's the part where I chose to assessing the timing of whether I was going to go there or not to. And if the person was, let's just talk about that there. What I would say is I'd say, hey, you've shared so many amazing things about your life and what's going on. I'm just curious if you'd be all right if I shared a couple of things that have been going on with me and what's happened in my life that it may be of value to you. And that would be like something where we'd say, you know what, you told me so much about what's going on with your health or of what's going on in your life or some of the struggles. I've had a few experiences and had some changes. Would you be okay if I shared a little bit about what's happened with me? And you'll know if it's safe to do that because they will have been in an interactive conversation. They would be leaning in with their body language. Their face is changing. The tone is there. That's why this process of intrinsic validation cannot be done through text, because you can't hear what the tone is and you can definitely not see them. And I'm not saying you have to have everybody on a Zoom, but so much of communication, which I won't go into the percentages, is about how they're leaning in and their posture, or they're looking at you, or if they're distracted. And so much of the communication is what their tone is telling you, right? You can hear a smile. You can hear resistance. So that's my 5 steps.
You know, Alex, I'll just comment before we throw it out to everybody that I love having the steps, like to see them on paper. Well, I typed them on my computer, but what I realized is that after you left that day, even though Misty had said, hey, I think there's more about, that I'd like to know about this, there was still a process of gaining agreement that went on because, but I didn't recognize it as such, because I asked, well, is that something you'd like to start conversation about now? And, or do we want to schedule something? And she said, well, I'd like to hear about it now. Well, how much time do you have right now? Right. And so that gave me a 10-15 minute window. It's all they had left because they needed to get back to their kids. But that helped me know how I was going to start. And then I also asked, what's of primary interest to you in this 10 or 15 minutes? Is it the physical health, or is it some of the other pieces like the mental, emotional health, or the financial health that you'd like to start with? And she said, I just want to feel better. Right. So that was my indicator of really what was I going to use that little bit of time we had for, because I can we'll meet again and we'll be able to go down some other paths in the future. So I love it being laid out like that, because I was able to recognize, you went through to step 3 with them, I guess it was. And then, step 4 and 5 ended up happening primarily after you left, but in a short amount of time. So.
Right. And one thing I'll say is I actually did step 4
Okay.
but I did it internally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I assessed, is this the time?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it wasn't for me to go into that. And you, like you said, then you continued on with it.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes what happens is we don't assess step 4
Mm-hmm.
and we go right into the stuff, right? When sometimes or we assess step 4 and we choose to, or we choose not to, based on the empathy that we're feeling or not feeling, and the intuition that we're getting that these walls are down, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And that's a practice. This is a practice. It's like kind of like a massage therapist or chiropractor practices until they can start feeling things, and you just have to take those baby steps and try it out. And you'll catch yourself with awareness going, ooh, I skipped step 2. I jumped right in, and,
Absolutely. Well, we have a few minutes, just maybe about 5 minutes, for some questions for Alex. And then Diane's going to walk us through some sort of follow-up to this. So questions for Alex in regard to those 5 intrinsic steps.
Well, I just want to say that it's so helpful for somebody like me to have steps because like I said at the beginning, the more I even realize that this has not been something I've been working on my whole life, is building these relationships and really learning and understanding about other people, and that really did have to do with my own walls of resistance and being afraid to open myself up to those relationships. So this is really helpful for me. And I'm also curious for others if I can recognize many times where maybe there's a task, I want to share the opportunity with 5 people over this period of time, where sometimes that goal makes me rush through this, whether I recognize it or not. And so I'm curious if other people will find this helpful, super helpful for me. So thanks, Alex.
I noticed I don't always know. I think I start with number 1, notice something about them. And then I may go to 2, and then I jump to 5. I just get to, I don't even invite them to my world. Actually, it's maybe sub 1. Just tell them about something I think is interesting. And so it's like, it's good awareness of, I get thinking to myself, I'm going to try this on my wife and my son. And I'm not going to tell them that I'm doing this. I'm just going to do it because I see the value in this kind of, they're important to me. They're very important to me. And so I'm going to just start communicating this way and see what kind of response I get from the communication, and just observe it. Mm-hmm. It's very, it's a great sort of exercise and experiment is the word I'm looking for. I'm just going to kind of experiment with it and have fun with it.
I see what Alex put in the group chat. Number 3 about landmines. I know that's me telling people what you think or saying, I know how you feel, or I think you should, I'm more, I think you should do this. I think you should do that. You should do this. And this is what I've learned from the program, or this is what my coach told me, or, it's all telling people. And I'm like, oh, I got to learn, I think each time it gets better and better, but I'm trying to slow it down and try to listen and engage with other people and let them do more of the talk. It's slow.
Eileen, I just want to thank you for that. I can see you want to grow your skills so bad, and you are working at this. And what I love about you is you are not quitting. you just keep getting back up there and you keep hitting, and oh man, you just inspire me. Thank you, Eileen.
And you know what's cool is people are getting started on the program and getting healthy.
Yep.
Every time this girl opens her mouth, she learns and people get started. So
You're among friends, Eileen. I think we're all always learning that next thing, right?
Well, I love how, I realize that I'm not the only one in this, got these issues, because I hear everybody saying, oh, when I first started out, this is what I did this. And I was like, oh, well then I'm not the only one. So we're all in the same boat.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me okay? I can't tell.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I just, I wasn't aware that saying, oh, I can relate to that, or trying to empathize with someone can actually maybe deter a conversation or direct a conversation or where someone's going, and really leaving it open can actually be more beneficial for someone rather than me saying, oh, I understand, if it's relatable. If it's something extreme, I won't say that, but I thought it was the opposite. Like, oh, if I say that that makes sense. Yes, you must have been tired or whatever. Now I'm introducing things rather than really hanging back and creating a big space for them to fill it with whatever they feel safe to fill it with. So that was insightful for me. Thanks, Alex.
yeah, and let me go on that and clear something up. And I know we're about time for Diane too. So this may be a second part conversation. This is really important. So empathy is actually really good. It's the sympathy piece that I was talking about. And there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is saying, oh, that sucks, or, oh yeah, that must feel horrible, right? Empathy is like, oh my goodness, how do you feel about that? And then they tell you, and you're listening, and you're showing that concern. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then you ask a question, which is, does it ever feel like the walls in your life are sometimes coming in on you? And they say, yes. Then you know you're on the same path, because your intuitive question aligned with what's inside. So the only way you can really truly see if you're truly empathizing with another person, which means on the path with them, is if you ask a question. And that's the only difference. I'm not saying not to, relate at some level, but it's not trying to relate by saying, oh yeah, I get you. It's not projecting it, right? And so keep taking action, guys. Don't stop taking action. This is so important. You get out there, you do it, and because people are going to sign up even when we do sympathize, and people are going to sign up even when we do project on them if they're ready, right? I'm just saying, start practicing this and start refining your skills, and you'll find that you'll even have more people coming to you. So Linda, I love what you're saying. At the same time, it's not about one hard line. You can only do it this way. We've just seen that collaborative horsepower goes from 10% with sympathy and just saying, oh yeah, thank you for sharing that, to 40% extra when they feel validated. And when
Alex,
yeah, go ahead.
When you're in your example there, does it feel like the walls are closing in? Mm-hmm. So it's a question, but the term walls are closing in has to come from a place of experience. Mm-hmm. And so you are empathizing without drawing attention to yourself that you've been there too. Mm-hmm. Just in the question. It's mastery. It's super good.
That's right.
Yeah, because they know what I'm thinking about is simply keep the word I out of the equation and you're safe, right? Because if you don't say, oh, I understand, or I've been there because, or, or yeah, I remember when I felt like that, that's all moving it away from them. And the only way to keep it to them is to keep asking questions. So.
And before Diane starts, I just want to say, and when you do say I, mm-hmm. and when you do start spewing all over their wall and start doing all that, then just laugh at yourself and then move on, right? You don't need to make a big deal and go, oh, I did it again. Like, oh, this isn't going to work. It's just have fun with it and learn. So don't stop.
The beauty is you can switch, right? The moment you recognize it and hear the word I, that's your opportunity to say, oh, what can I ask instead, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Love it. Thank you.
I just want to say too really quick, can y'all hear me good? Mm-hmm. Okay, so Alex and I kind of hijacked Daniela's room last week, and we had some pretty profound stuff happen. And so what we were discussing along these lines was when he was talking, or when we were talking about, you know, other parents not getting out because they have young kids, because that's me. That's the story of my life. And it's like, if I were, okay, so Linda, tell me that you don't get out very often.
I don't get out very often. But that's true.
So does it so doesn't it feel great to get out and communicate and socialize with other moms?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that was kind of the example that we used to twist it into, gosh, Daniela. Okay. So you're so mean. So that's kind of the example that we used when we hijacked a room, is that we were saying that to twist it into something that is encouraging and uplifting and hopeful, and still making that about them, but also relating to what the difficulty is, but not even acknowledging the difficulty, but bringing in the good stuff.
Thank you for sharing your screen, by the way.
I don't want to.
No, I know, but you did it anyway, and we can see you now and connect with you. Thank you.
I love it. And I'm going to be the time boss and say, I think we're going to Diane now.
Yeah.
Hey, well, let me, Craig, are we done at 10? Because that leaves.
We got a 5-minute buffer. So.
Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, great. That's pressure.
We'll
Well,
give you 7.
7. Okay. Well, this is such great discussion, and it's funny because I had all these questions all prepared, and you guys were answering them in your discussion, so it's going to help make this part go a lot smoother. But to really have the most value with what we've been talking about today, I think it would really merit doing an assessment. You know, look at yourself in regards to curiosity, right, which Craig did a wonderful job. And then the whole thing of taking down other people's and our own walls of resistance using the art of questions. So who out there, 2 people, let's have 2 people. I think that gives us enough, we have enough time to do that, would like to share something that they learned about themselves going through this exercise, and what they would like to work on this week.
I shared earlier that I jump right to talking about myself, and my exercise is that I'm going to look for something unique about my wife, and then I'm going to try to figure out if I can ask a question that empathizes with her. That I don't say, oh, because this just happened on Wednesday night, where she got her feelings hurt from a family member. And I was saying, yeah, my feelings have gotten hurt too from my dad. I know you know about that, but it just felt weird, and it was making it about me. So I'm really loving this challenge. I love this challenge of trying to figure out how I can communicate that I understand her, but not by making it about me. And so I don't know how it's going to work yet. I'm going to figure it out as I go, but that's what I'm going to do. And I know in the end, she's going to feel loved by me. And that's a big, important piece for me. Huge for that.
Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else want to share?
Back to me. No. Back to what I'm going to work on is to quit telling people what they should and shouldn't do.
I think you have a lot of people. I see a lot of nodding heads right now. So I think a lot of people are on the same page as you, Eileen. Thank you for that.
Diana, one more thing I wanted to say when I'm coaching people, and I think this is relevant because of the question, is when I tell a client, I'm so excited for you, or we say, I'm so proud of you, that I find that when I say that, then when they gain weight for the week and they call me, now am I going to say, I'm so disappointed with you? I would never say that, but they're reluctant to call me because somehow they think that I would. So I'm trying to be careful and not saying you should do this, or I'm proud of you, or I'm so excited. And the word I came up with was, what you've done is really encouraging. It's really encouraging. It's really inspiring. And that is a nuanced way that doesn't make it about me. So anyway, but that's another thing I think about as we're going through our coaching weeks.
Thank you. Debbie, did you have a question? Debbie, did you want to add something? She's gone, isn't she? Where is she?
Yeah, she's out of her box right now. I think maybe she had to move or something.
Okay.
I would like to suggest that we just give a moment of silence for someone to speak up. Let's just like, who else wants to share?
So
I was
I think Craig really touched on something, because I have a tendency to say, I'm really proud of you or whatever. And I've really like caught myself multiple times over the last few weeks I now have 3 clients, which is a huge deal for me, and I'm changing lives, and it's awesome. But I also like really have a hard time with telling them that I'm proud of them, because I want to tell them that. I want to encourage them in that way. But I also, at the same time, I'm learning how to approach things in a different way. So I'm working through I'm on level ground with them. I'm not a parent. I'm not a person higher up than they are. I'm just a little further along in my journey. So ground is still level for us, as far as the journey we're on, but the levels are just a little different, or the length of journey is just a little different. So I'm working on being more encouraging, using the right words, being able to share my video in these talks here, and yeah, and also being transparent. I have a really hard time, we were talking about this too, I have a hard time with allowing myself to let people in. And so it's a hard thing to be a coach and not let people in. So I'm working on that too, which is why I don't share my video very much. But I just want to say that I appreciate you guys for encouraging me to be safe in this environment that we're in. So those are a few things I'm working on.
Christina, you can't hear your smile.
Yeah.
You can't hear it. And your smile is amazing. So I just want to say thank you for sharing your smile with us, and not just your words, not just your voice.
Yeah, and Christina, in addition to that, thank you so much for allowing yourself to be vulnerable and transparent. It is inspiring all of us. So thank you.
This is a lot of growth in a short amount of time. And Craig and I were talking, like, coaching is not for the faint of heart. And like, you have to have the drive to change. And if you don't, then you shouldn't be a coach, you know? And I like, Craig makes fun of me because I'm like, I don't want to do that. Okay. Like, I'll do it anyway. And, so I know my mom emotions are really high, but at the same time, like, I want this change so bad that I'm more scared not to do it than to do it.
Oh, love that. Love that. Clark, I saw that you had your hand up. Did you want to say something?
I wanted to ask a question, but I didn't want to take up people's time. So
No, please do.
you know, I find that there's a trap for me too when I use the word I, but I was thinking, I also try to say when someone has a success during the week, you know, wow, that is so awesome. I mean, you're doing so good. Are you falling into the same trap as using I when you do that?
Well, can I jump in on that one?
Yeah.
And I know Craig's about ready to start the health huddle here too. Is that on a different line or this one, Craig? Can't hear you.
I gave it a delay, so we have a little buffer. We can
Okay.
talk. Yeah.
So here's a really, really neat thing, because it's not bad to say you're doing so great. Like, let's make sure we're clear on that. But what could even be better is, how do you feel about that? How does it feel to know that you did all those actions this week? Or how does it feel to know that you did it, what you just did there? And you're posing it as a question, and you're asking intrinsically for them, because either that's in them or it's not. And you, as a coach, you want to know where they're really at. You don't want it to be an external sugarcoating, right? Because that can only last so long. And they're like, oh, I'm a good boy, attaboy, attagirl, right? What you want to do is you want to make this intrinsic, so where they can see that that's inside. Does that make sense, Clark?
Yeah, that reminds me of, raising kids, right? Our tendency is to say, or even as teachers, wow, I'm proud of you. But and my parents said that a lot. And to be really honest, it didn't mean as much until I discovered what I was proud of myself about. And that ended up coming from somebody doing exactly what Alex is talking about, saying, well, Daniela, what are you proud of? And you know what? It was different things than what my parents pointed out. So it's interesting what happens when we ask that question.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I was going to end with an assignment. So, and I'd love it if we would all post in the chat what the one thing that you'll do this week to be more curious. So I know some of you have shared, but I'd like it if you would put it in the chat, or what you're willing to work on this week to bring down walls of resistance with those you care about. So not just your business, but your family, friends, kids, whatever. So go ahead and write in the chat what that one thing is going to be, and we'll leave with that and pick up with that next week.
I would actually suggest that we maybe put this on the OHC.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Can you post your question you just said on the OHC, and all of us, I commit to going on there at some point in the next hour or so, because I've got another meeting I had to jump on, to answering that. Does that sound good?
So post the question, and when we post, we'll post in the comments, so it's all bundled in the one post.
Yes. Yep. That's great.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Good job, you guys. Thanks for your attention, guys, and your the tears and the realness. I love that coaching is making us better human beings and relating with other important human beings, and not just about building businesses, right? And so, thank you for the what you've shared, Alex, and the amazing transformation that you're different, man. Seriously.
And let me not to be overly humble, but Dave Blanchard really helped me a lot with these things. Those 5 steps that I gave you are from Dave Blanchard. I've just been utilizing them now. I feel authentic in sharing them with you because I use them. And so if Craig, I want to turn the gratitude back to the action that I chose to take. And any one of you, everybody here can do this. And you're going to stumble when you start, but it's worth it. Just like a baby learning to walk, it's worth it. Encourage yourself in the stumbling process, just like you would for your niece, nephew, or child. Come on, you look good. Blood's running down their face. Keep going, right? It's worth it.
Yeah, well, and I was just thinking of all of us that have spouses, thinking of a way that you can notice something about them, and just do this as a simple little exercise with them. That's the one that comes to mind first. So thank you all. By the way, just as a reminder, in July, we're moving to Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific. So the Health Coach Huddle will be moving day starting in July. So we'll continue here on Fridays, and then we'll move to Tuesdays. So if you have coaches that are on your team and that aren't here, but you're here, tell them about it, because Tuesday night may work for them. And we know also, Danielle and I have talked about this many times, there's a how can I attitude, because maybe you have something on Tuesday nights. And so it's going to take some while to adjust from Friday mornings to Tuesday nights. Okay, so how can I? And let's work on what it's going to take to get you there. So thank you guys for your attention. Thank you guys all for being part of this amazing team and really the growth that we're doing together. Have an awesome weekend. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, guys. Yep. Bye-bye.